Join the taco cooking revolution with the Taco Rack at tacorack.com. Prepare, cook, and serve hot, crisp tacos only on the Taco Rack. Vetted by me and the AMTV crew, the Taco Rack is the only restaurant-quality taco rack for the professional chef or stay-at-home cook. 100% made in the USA, the Taco Rack by La Cucaracha is the winner of CNBC's Big Idea and fun for the whole family. Click the link below and get yours now.
So many of you out there are digesting the news of Japan and the earthquake that causes tsunamis that hit the west coast of the United States, Hawaii, and they caused devastating damage all throughout Japan, resulting in billions of dollars worth of dollars lost. I'm sure insurance companies are going to come in and have to rebuild the Japanese infrastructure. In addition to the fact that there's a nuclear power plant literally experiencing a meltdown as we speak, and if you watch the footage, and I'm not going to even show it because you can get plenty of it on the internet right now or on mainstream television, and it's pretty tough to watch, but it's really just a full-blown, full-scale disaster, unlike really anything we've seen in a long time. I mean, it almost kind of looks like Hurricane Katrina out there. And just very scary stuff. But when you watch these horrifying images of the water, overflowing onto dry land, taking over buildings and boats and people and killing thousands. I think the estimate's up to about 1,300 so far that have been killed in this devastation. It's tough not to wonder what the devastation is going to look like here in the United States when the full-scale breakdown actually presents itself. Now, if you've been following my channel for the past year, you would know clearly that I think we're in the stages of collapse right now, that we're in the stages of this systemic breakdown in the global financial system. I think that the writing is on the wall, and that we can clearly see that not only has there been a transfer of wealth that's been unprecedented, but we've reinforced bailouts through taxpayer handouts, and we've also rewarded fraud and corruption, and it's clear that we're living under tyranny right now. I'm going to paraphrase one of our founding fathers. I think it was Alexander Hamilton. Maybe it was someone else, but basically what he said is that if you let the banks control our financial system for too long, if you let that power structure get out of control, then someday you're going to wake up where your children and the land that you once owned, that you thought you owned, would be in the hands and back into the power of the federal government, which is exactly where we are now. I mean, if you take a look at residential real estate, the federal government is now the largest holder of all residential real estate in the United States, indirectly through the banks that they've just bailed out, and also indirectly and implicitly through institutions, quasi-private public institutions like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which, by the way, we have not addressed any kind of reorganization or restructuring plans for those two entities, which still remain the pink elephant in the room as they cause much of the systemic breakdown in mortgages and cause the housing crisis that we're currently living in. Now, I know that not the entire country has experienced quite the devastation as states like the one that I currently live in, Arizona, has, but I mean, we're off 50% in Arizona right now. 50%. With no end in sight. And based on the estimates coming from an economist and also my estimates, I see another 5 to 15% correction here in our home state, and I think we could really peak to trough since that 2005-2006 peak, almost 70%. So it's by far and nothing short of a depression-like event. It's also nothing short of a depressionary contraction in the credit cycle unlike anything we'd ever seen. So here we are in the present day with the stock market having rebounded artificially from the depths of hell, basically, with the S&P 500 at 666 in 2008. Now we're looking at the Dow at 12,000, and many are asking, how is that possible? In fact, someone asked me this evening, how is it possible that the market could just skyrocket from those lows? And then we have all this devastation in Japan. We have mainstream economists, people like Warren Buffett, telling us to our faces now that the United States dollar is going to lose its world reserve currency status. We have people like Sam Zell, famous multi-billion-dollar real estate investors, tell us when that happens that it's going to have a 25% decline in the standard of living for everyday Americans. I mean, guys, this is catastrophic stuff. I mean, if you're really paying attention, and I don't really consider myself a historian, but if you study the fall of Rome, there was warning signs everywhere. But if you study it, you'd also know that it took 10 to 15 years really for the material breakdown to take root and to take hold. And we've got warning signs all around us. I mean, not only do we have the warning signs such as the laughable quantitative easing programs that we've actually allowed our federal government to pass, and break down in, municipalities and state budgets and our federal budget and the housing market and unemployment and all these big issues that we're talking about. And you've got millions of Americans that aren't even paying their mortgages right now because they're being forced to strategically default. And, supposedly we're living in this, fictitious la-la land of recovery. There's never been a time in history where we've had such a dramatic decline in risk assets and the credit markets, which we have now learned are inherently flawed at their very core. And you see, that's the problem, and that's what the federal government's trying to do. I mean, these people are smart. Ben Bernanke and these guys in the boardroom, I mean, they know what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is artificially stimulate this broken system, this broken economy, this broken stock market to a point where they can do a handoff from the government sector, which is currently propping everything up, and hand it off to the private sector and hopefully make that a seamless transition. But the problem is there's no demand. That's why the government has had to step in and artificially create that demand. It's the basic economics 101 formula, GDP equals consumption plus investment, X plus government spending, exports minus imports. You see, it's G, the G variable, that is the only input creating anything in that GDP formula. And so, it's all fine and dandy behind a boardroom when you've got these Princeton University and MIT University bankers supposedly creating, these fancy products like the securitization model and these fancy tranches. And we see how that worked out. So we know these people have zero credibility. We know that we give them an F score with their ability to manage the economy and manage their businesses and manage the banks. But now we're in the same situation now where we're actually relying on these same people, these supposedly smart people that have allowed our entire financial system to collapse on itself and to really burst into a ball of flames. They're now telling us that everything's going to be okay, that there's not going to be any speed bump along the way as they, again, hand off from the government sector back to the private markets. Now, if you've learned anything from the past couple of years, is that the stock market itself is highly irrational. I mean, really, when I look at the U.S. stock market now, not only do I know fundamentally that it's rigged and artificially stimulated, and this is coming from a guy that studied finance, that has been in the business, that has worked for Merrill Lynch as a retail financial advisor, and seen how it's affected his own clients. I mean, if there's guys like me that think this, believe me, I'm not the only one. There's millions of me that think this way. And you see, that's the biggest flaw. That's the biggest tragedy in the grand scheme of things, is that people no longer believe in the American dream. The American dream is officially dead. And more importantly, nobody believes, at least a lot of people, including myself, we don't believe in the system anymore. We don't believe in America anymore. We don't believe in anything anymore about this country because we've been lied to. And, actions speak louder than words, and the resounding truth that has been evidently clear the past few years is that we reward fraud and that we reward corruption, which is exactly what we've done through handouts, bailouts, and, making sure that these elite bankers never have to take a loss. But you know who's taking the loss right now? The people. You are. I am. The people of this country. And now we have this moral hazard, this complete loss of faith. You've cut the balls off, so to speak, on any incentive that we once had here in America. I mean, let me ask you a question. Why would you even try to toil and work the next 20 to 30, 40 years, let's say, to accumulate a multi-million-dollar nest egg if you don't believe in the system? The answer is you won't. and you will not try for that. And so we've lost all that, bootstrapping Americana that we once had in this country, and it's not completely gone. But the point is, if you don't have anywhere to put your money, and if you don't believe in the system, why would you ever try to create wealth? So the point is, if there's a complete lack of faith in the system, and the people have in fact lost all hope, meaning that they do not believe it anymore, then what do we have left? Well, what we have left is not a pretty picture, and it's not going to end well. What we have is a broken economy, we have a broken nation, and we have a broken belief system. And you see, that is the biggest tragedy in all this. And it's also reinforced the fact that the people of this country no longer trust our government. They'll never trust them again, because they've directly been screwed by them. They've directly been hurt by them. And that, my friends, is the biggest upset and the biggest challenge that we have to look forward to. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching Greenwave TV, alternative media television, and I just delivered the Daily Wave.